So you know what I just don't get? I don't understand toast, right? Because, like, somebody, somewhere, said, you know what? Bread is pretty good, but it could be better. And the way I can make it better is cooking it twice? But when you toast it, it's just like, the whole thing is crust, and crust is like the worst part of bread. What kind of mindset do you have to be in to come up with toast? I am very, 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 very bored. We're still under quarantine. I'm still thinking about Star Wars. This time in particular, I'm thinking about Star Wars comics. Star Wars has a long history of comics, almost as long as the movies, and has been going on the entire time. I mean, they've always been insanely popular, and it makes sense. Star Wars was based in a lot of ways on old sci-fi serials and like movies of that era and shows and Pulp Fiction. And so Star Wars is pretty much built from the same stock that comic books are. And while we literally could talk almost all day about different Star Wars comics and some of the series that I find enjoyable and what I think of them now as opposed to earlier, there's one series that has come to mind a lot. And I wanted to talk about it really bad for a while now, so we're going to. Let's talk about Star Wars Tales. Star Wars Tales went for only 24 issues and one free comic book day issue. Which I got. I got the free comic book day issue. This was hard to find. I'm very proud of this find. Now, 24, that's not a whole lot, but it is worth mentioning that every issue is 64 pages. That's bigger than even special edition issues are now. Like, that's huge. And they were releasing one of these every month. That's a big deal. That's a lot of comic for your buck. Now, initially, the canon was that these were different Star Wars stories that you could check out at the great movie rental place of Star Wars, of space. And that some of them might be true and some of them definitely aren't true and some of them are just supposed to be funny. But that whole premise kind of left and was replaced with just the editor showing up for a page and saying, hey, here's the comic, enjoy it, and then you hop right into it. Now, today I thought we would specifically talk about Star Wars Tales number 19. Now, I picked this issue because this is probably the most famous issue in that series. Now, I say that because before I knew this series existed, I've heard of 4 of the 7 stories from this, and only like one other story from the rest of the series. And even after I learned about this book and I read through it and I've done some more research, I find this is still the most talked about issue. So, let me tell you about it. Just pull this up. And all of the collectors are like, no, don't open the comic. I did already, sorry. So the first story that we get here takes place in my probably second favorite era of Star Wars, which is right after Episode 6 and what the main characters were doing then. It's called Collapsing New Empires. The main cast, Luke, Han, Leia, Chewie, and the 2 droids, they're on a routine mission to go around and check different star systems, making sure that there's no Imperial remnant left to eventually rise up and conquer the galaxy and create, I don't know, a first order of sorts. And in this one, they find this old man who he claims himself an artist, and he just takes old wrecked up junk from the Star Wars and he mushes it together and creates sculptures and different kinds of things. But it later turns out he has been creating microbots that take over machines and create these giant war bots, and the main cast of heroes has to dispatch them. It also has a really scary implication for Jawas, that they have like bugs crawling all over their face and that's what's under the hoods, and it's like, ew, so gross. The next story is titled, "The Value of Proper Intelligence to Any Successful Military Campaign is Not to be Underestimated." And it's only 2 pages long, and it's absolutely hilarious, and I don't want to spoil it for you because I want you to go online and check out this book. It's great. Rather Darkness Visible follows the story of a Jedi Knight during maybe a year and a half into the Clone Wars, and she's made the choice to leave the Jedi because fighting in a war, that doesn't seem very Jedi of the Jedi, so she's just going to leave. That's her solution. And honestly, I kind of admire that. At least somebody was paying attention to the plot that was happening. And eventually, she does get to meet someone who did that very thing. Count Dooku. She doesn't live for very long. Next is a story called The Rebel Club, which, as you could probably imagine, is your token Breakfast Club parody of Star Wars that you can kind of see on the internet sometimes. The next story is The Lost Lightsaber, and it's the story about how Luke Skywalker's first lightsaber, Anakin's lightsaber, was lost and then eventually found and recovered, and its journey throughout its life. After Luke Skywalker lost the lightsaber, eventually the saber fell into the hands of a dark Jedi committed to evil acts, and the evil acts that lightsaber committed. It gives it a really mystical feel, more so than I think the movie did, but it gives the lightsaber kind of this gravitas, and it's cool. Anyway, so this dark Jedi takes the lightsaber, and he's going to do a bunch of evil acts with it. And suddenly, he's stopped by Ben Skywalker, Luke Skywalker's son, and it's cool. And seeing Ben Skywalker in this makes me really miss the Legends canon. Now, the last 2 stories are probably the most talked about ones, and I'm going to do these out of order, save the most surprising for last. So let's go ahead and jump ahead in the book for a second, and let's talk about Storyteller. A race of aliens are oppressed by their neighboring overlords, and in the commotion, 2 kids were able to escape to a cave, and they discovered the prophesied storyteller, C-3PO. They asked the robot, "Do you know any stories? Anything you could tell us to help us overcome these trials that we're facing?" And he's like, "I vaguely remember some. I'm not sure if they're interesting, but I'll go ahead and tell you." And he tells them this amazing tale of a young boy who lived on a farm and dreamed of going on a great adventure someday, and ended up overthrowing an evil empire and bringing peace and freedom to the galaxy. And then the overlords show up in the cave and they kill one of the kids. The other one was able to escape, barely. It's sad. But there's something that was left behind. Inside of C-3PO, there was a lightsaber. And with that lightsaber came hope for a better galaxy. Oh, such a cool story. I love it. Woo! But it has nothing on this next one. And this next story here is why this issue is so famous. This is the one that every YouTuber has to talk about. This is a big story. It's called Into the Great Unknown. Han and Chewbacca are being pursued by Imperials, and their navicomputer is on the fritz. They're in a rush, so they have to jump into hyperspace blind. So they do so. They push the button, they jump into hyperspace. When they come out of it, they're in a strange part of the galaxy that Han Solo and Chewbacca, they don't recognize. There's a bunch of planets around, but only one of them is habitable, which is weird. How can there only be one planet in a solar system that's habitable? So they go to that planet, and they're hoping to find maybe an advanced civilization, some way to fix the Falcon, to get some fuel, head back home. And as they're looking around, they're attacked by the native population of the planet. Han Solo is shot by a few arrows, and it's very clear he's not going to make it. 126 years later, a guide is leading his client to the last known location of the mythical Sasquatch. when they get there, they find it is no cave. It is a metal tomb, but not a tomb like this client has seen ever. This client is Indiana Jones. They put Indiana Jones in this story, which means this is no longer a Star Wars comic. This is an Indiana Jones comic. Indiana Jones comments on the place and its amazing technology and points out that he's never seen anything like it, not even in Atlantis, which is a reference to another Indiana Jones book, and it's fantastic, Fate of Atlantis. I really am excited to share that with you sometime, so I'll go ahead and put that one on the list. In the end, Indiana Jones discovers the skeleton of Han Solo, and he's a little creeped out by it. It looks familiar somehow, wink wink. And he opts, know what? Let's not continue to investigate this. Let's just leave this as part of the great unknown mystery. I mean, yeah, it's a bit of a somber tale, but holy cow, Indiana Jones makes an appearance in it, and that's cool. This is the closest we'll probably ever get to having a real Star Wars Indiana Jones crossover. And it was a cool thing to see on paper. Even if it's just a few pages, it was really neat. So, Star Wars Tales number 19. Like I said, the whole series is fantastic, and it was printed a bunch, so it's honestly not that hard to find if you go to a comic store and you look through their huge bin of Star Wars comics. You can probably find a bunch of issues of this. It's all been collected into collected trade paperbacks, so that's handy. And it's also all on digital on comixology. So there you go. Head over there, check it out. It's great. Comes very highly recommended from me. So that's what I've got for you today. Now, the question I have for you is, what are you doing to keep yourself busy during this quarantine? And I don't know, give me some hope here. Is this ever going to end? And hey, I'll keep on making videos for you, and it'll keep on being great. So until next time, thank you for joining me. Have a great day, and remember to always be your best self.